Well, let's do it. I'm going to talk today about Entombed. There is my, a stamp and something on the back from Uffy Cederlund, somewhere in 1991, 1990. Various other bits of fanzine paraphernalia here. God damn it. I do wish I had one of those shirts. I used to have a Left Hand Path shirt, one of the very first ones from Earache, which had "What Man Created, Man Can Destroy, Bring to Light That Day of Joy" on the back. And the old drummer of Primordial pinched it, and I have no fucking idea where it is. So, Entombed. God damn it, that looks brand shiny and new. This isn't an episode that's going to have lots of vinyl porn. That's basically it. And I thought about doing Entombed before, but actually having been a sort of mate of LG's, felt a bit weird to try and do one just after he died. What a funny, awesome guy he was. Really good company. Taken way too early. Anyway, let's evaluate the career of Entombed. It's probably more interesting in a way than doing Dismember or something, because there's sort of ups and downs and changes and different things happen throughout their musical career that for a straightforward death metal band you don't really get those kind of things. So let's have a look at the career of Entombed. It's a complicated career. It involves, just a casual look on Wikipedia will show how many members they had, and it says that right now in 2025 they are making new music. I don't know. Well, you can't really start without Nihilist. I used to have the demos. I don't really, have cassettes in my, as my friend Matt from Razor of Occam would call them, your ballast. The stuff that you carry around from place to place that you never use, that just stops you, living easy and free. But the Nihilist demos are absolutely essential, and some of the greatest death metal demos of all time, especially the second and third ones. But Life Goes On, I think, and Drowned. You could see why they became, I suppose, realistically head and shoulders above everybody else. The common misconception is that Left Hand Path was the first death metal album recorded in the famous Sunlight Studios, but it was actually Tiamat, Sumerian Cry. It was a bit beforehand. And you can hear something similar in the guitar tone. In fact, if you don't know Slaughter Strappado, shame on you, but that's kind of where that crazy buzzsaw guitar sound came from a little bit. I think without Slaughter, seeing as my Entombed shirt was half-inched, I thought I'd wear the next... What is it, the next best thing? Anyway, Nihilist is where it started in 87, and I guess with the current reassessment and like playing live again of Morbid, most people, does everybody realise that LG was originally the drummer of Morbid, and Uffe Sutherland was originally the guitar player of Morbid, and then they sort of merged together with Nicky and some other guy called Leaf, I think, and then started Entombed. Not sure everybody realises that LG was in Morbid. No doubt there's some 19-year-old in an eBay bought Morbid shirt they paid €400 for, shouting at me right now. Well, keep shouting. I do remember the first time ever hearing Left Hand Path. We were talking about it last weekend, myself and Morgan from Marduk, a man after my own heart who loves numbers and stats and lists, and very often we get into these debates. What are the top 5 this? What are the top 5? Yeah, that's the voice we put on. But, these top 5 discussions. And top 5 death metal albums of all time. Could Left Hand Path be in there? It's very possible. It's where all of those guitar sounds, the likes of your Gate Creepers and whoever else, these modern death metal bands. Of course, Entombed wasn't created in a vacuum. It seems to be come out of that Sunlight Studio, which was a very small, apparently, studio. I've never been there, where there was a kind of almost electronic drum kit, I think, was recorded. You can hear a bit of the strange electronic sound in the drums, but the guitar sound is just massive. And the first time you ever hear the song Left Hand Path, it's kind of like the death metal equivalent of Painkiller or something. It's like if aliens beamed down from, wherever aliens are from, and said, play me a song that epitomizes death metal. You'd go hard. You would be hard pushed to pick a better song than Left Hand Path. it's insane. In the midsection where it just stops, oof, you get goosebumps just thinking about that breakdown and that guitar sound. And again, also the people forget the image. Entombed's image was fucking cool. I'm not so sure about this thing at the back of the album, but Dan Seagrave, again, this is a masterstroke. Could this be the best work of Dan Seagrave? I'm one of those people who didn't like Altars of Madness. I thought, or his Altars of Madness cover, I thought it was too jokey. I thought it was too silly. I preferred the Die Kingdom Come demo with the crucified guys on the inside. I thought that was way darker. It irritated me that Altars of Madness, some of the little guys' faces looked like they were out of that, what's that, Labyrinth movie? I don't know why. This is not a conversation, it's a monologue. But out of Labyrinth, just irritated me that it was so fucking goofy. This, on the other hand, is fucking genius. Let me put on the glasses of death and have a look. Crushing Guitars, Mass Death. Swedish death metal gods, formerly Nihilist. Recommended price $5.99. Isn't that amazing? That record labels used to do that. God bless their punk souls before they completely sold out to capitalism. And they would recommend a price on the cover. In fact, some of the early Peaceful records would say, pay no more than whatever it was. That quickly changed, didn't it? But yeah, I mean, Left Hand Path is just banger after banger. Revel in Flesh. The CD version of it also has 2 extra songs. Abnormally Deceased, I think, and some other song, Carnal Leftovers maybe, one of which has a strange vocal effect. But The Truth Beyond, yeah, I mean, early Primordial, I think we used to play Morbid Devourment, did we? We did play a song off this somewhere in 1991. I wonder if there's a recording of that somewhere. I actually played on a football team with LG once, and also guys from Merciless and Grave. Somehow I blagged my way into a festival called Metal Svenskan, which is much missed, but it was a great festival. Started out as a football match with a barbecue attached somewhere in northern Sweden, Umeå or something, and it grew into 10,000 people. And they would have a football kind of competition. And for some reason they thought I was really good at football, of course. I must have just told some fucking bullshit or something or other. And the guy, I remember being picked up once at the airport. The guy was like, oh, how do you manage singing in a band and playing professional football in Ireland? I was like, well, interesting you say why I'm obviously playing for Shamrock Rovers and also playing in Primordial. I mean, not a bad life that would be. But however, anyway, one time LG played with us and the LG Shuffle became very famous. He played football, imagine, just like you imagine. He might have, if you knew him in real life, you could just imagine how he would play football. He'd smuggle the ball by you, by any means. Anyway, Left Hand Path. My top 3 death metal albums of all time are Altars of Madness, Deicide, and Mental Funeral. But if you got me on another day, this could be 3rd, could be 4th. Could it be top? If you told me it was top, I wouldn't argue with you. I'd go, yeah, you might be right. And like I said, that breakdown in Left Hand Path just gave me goosebumps even just thinking about it. Yeah, Left Hand Path. And what's strange is that, well, it's not strange, when you set out your stall, so I was talking about this in the podcast there the other week, is that when a band recorded their first album back in those days, they were honing those songs on this first album for a year or two. They were they'd been performing those songs and gigs, and that's why death metal is often heavy metal, especially death metal and thrash metal. The first 2 albums are usually the killers, because they're, once you get to the second half of the second half of side 2 on the second album, you're beginning to get new songs, and sometimes those are a bit rushed. Third album, could it be a bit rushed? People are a bit confused as to what to do because they've grown up and put everything they had into those first couple of songs. And okay, not so cool to show off CDs. Clandestine, for some reason I never bought the vinyl of this. I only bought the CD back in the day. Back when you didn't really sort of understand the worth of those things. The first time you got a CD was maybe somewhere in 89 or 90. and it was just a new, shiny new thing. And so there's a couple of things, such as Clandestine, if anyone wants to send me one. I presume it's a €500 vinyl now or something, that I just don't have. So somewhere between Left Hand Path and Clandestine, I think LG and the guys fell out over something or other. I never asked him. I don't know what it's about. So on this album, Clandestine, which I do know people who prefer this to Left Hand Path, and I get it. It's moving in a slightly different direction. If you listen to Left Hand Path, I think some of the riffs are more like where Entombed went, with albums like Uprising. Clandestine is a bit darker. It's a bit harder. Maybe not harder is not the right word, colder. I mean, if you look at Through the Colonnades, for example, Evelyn, there's something slightly different in the riffs, and the production is incredible. Again, so it's used, but it's tighter, it's darker, it's a bit more evil in a way. They have this guy Johnny Dordovich, who I always remember because he had a plaid shirt that I disliked, as you do when you're 15 or 16. Such decisions are made. He's not wearing a Slaughter shirt. He can't be true death metal. But of course, he sang on the Carnage album, which is a killer record. But Living Dead, Sinners Bleed, I mean, it's all killer. I mean, if you said this is better than Left Hand Path, I'm not sure I would. I could take it as an argument. Parity, at least. And it's incredible for such a band to have their first two albums as such such incredible albums. Nicky Anderson sings on it. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't have it down over Left Hand Path. The vocals are cool. He does a fucking good job, considering I don't think he sang on anything before. But there's just a slight difference between the that and the LG of Left Hand Path. Like I said, no more vinyl porn, unless you count this EP, which is quite interesting, which is Crawl. Continuing the theme of lots of great 80s metal bands, some of those early earache death metal bands, they made great EPs. Morbid Angel never did it, as far as I know, but Carcass did it, Confessor, Godflesh, Cathedral. They all made, if you have Gods of Grind. Oh, actually, I do have Gods of Grind somewhere, the compilation of all the 12 inches. But Crawl has the singer, I think his name is Orvar from Nirvana 2002, is it? Or 2112. No, that's Rush, isn't it? Which is, who are a great band they deserved more as well, Nirvana 2002. Unfortunately, they happen to call their band Nirvana. Nothing much you can do about that. So this is Crawl, Forsaken and Bitter Loss. The song Forsaken, I think, is not on anything else. And, they're still, again, they're looking moody, they're looking dark. It's fucking cool. This is everything you want from death metal, minus bullet belts and Morbid Angel t-shirts. I mean, it's a killer EP. The voice is a little bit different, a little bit raspier, a little bit, maybe almost a bit more black metal-y, could you say? Maybe not. But there's also, from that era, there's like Live in London, Monkey Puss or something like this that didn't come out for a while. Back tape trading, I used to have a great live tape of them. I think it was like somewhere like Brighton, maybe not Brighton, Birmingham, maybe 1990, 1991, their first tours, and they stopped Left Hand Path in the middle, and they go, and LG goes, "Oh, we fucked up. Oh well, fuck it anyway," or something like that, halfway through one of the songs. And it was fascinating when you were a kid to hear, oh my God, they stopped the song. And I think I had it on the same cassette as Autopsy Live in Wrexham or something, 1990, which was one of those old, what were they called? Headache sort of bootleg records from the early 90s. Always bootlegged, and it sounded like in front of absolutely no one. Entombed never played here. In the early 90s, or here being Dublin, Ireland, if you've no clue. They never played here. A lot of, Autopsy and Paradise Lost were supposed to. Autopsy didn't back in the day, but we got there. So we got Morbid Angel, we got Unleashed. But no, we never got Entombed, sadly. And this is where traditional death metal fans part ways with Entombed. And it's where I parted ways with Entombed. Because black metal was sort of just coming out and taking the place of, in our affections of, well, black metal had come out already. We were into black metal 1990, 1991. But a lot of the death metal bands began to jump off into places that we were just not interested in. And as soon as I saw Wolverine, and I didn't even know what Wolverine was. I just saw a cartoon picture and I was like, fuck that band. They changed their logo. It's not death metal anymore. Wolverine Blues, get fucked. And I mean, you still will meet hundreds, if not 10,000s of old death metal heads who are exactly the same. I know for some people that was their jump in point because that song, Wolverine Blues, was very big on MTV at the time. I think it's the most streamed song, if I'm not incorrect, on Spotify. And now listening back, and this is what's going to make this video a bit interesting, is because I've got back into those records now more, and some of the ones after that more. At the time, everything about it, I just was zero interest. A video with cartoon people in it, anything that had any inkling of any sense of humor, anything jokey, any in-jokey, anything, any chink of light, of daylight in anything, I was just not interested. You know, any thrash band who did a cover, or you know, like a jokey cover in 88, 89, I was not interested in. Death metal, and of course, you know, if you look at all those bands, whether they were, you know, Catatonia coming from the more black metal side of things, or Tiamat, where they went, you can see these bands were on a journey. Very often they find their way back to an element of the beginning, and Entombed did find their way back to the beginning because there was there's a release of a recording of playing the album Clandestine. Now, there's also something called Unreal Estate, which is like with an orchestra or something, and I must admit, I spent very little time with that. That just seems like unnecessary, just like I thought Metallica doing it seemed unnecessary. A sort of, it's just a bit too privileged, is that the word? Don't like using that word in a 2025 context. But it was like, come on, this is not necessary. However, anyway, Wolverine Blues, now when I go back and I play the opening track, what is it called? iMaster, I go, okay, yeah, I see. And there's lots of riffs and breakdowns that are what they were calling death and roll, which again I wouldn't have, not having this. Oddly enough, I preferred Helicopters when the Helicopters first came out. That Super Shitty to the Max, whatever it was called. Super Shitty to the Max. I preferred that than hearing rock and roll and death metal. And just bands changing logos and changing images. I just was like, I'm not having it. That's just the way things were. When you were, you know, a know-it-all teenager. And I did used to write to Uffe a bit, who seemed to have been sort of in charge of some of the directions a little bit after that. And I traded him a Subhumans shirt for a Carnage shirt, I think, in 1991. Do you still have that Subhumans shirt, Uffe? Because obviously he went on to Dysphere. I'm being sidetracked by the bands that all the people who are connected with Entombed is just, it's like, you know, it's a ridiculous family tree. I mean, even that last time they played on that, I think it was the Sweden Rock Boat, they had the guys from Morbus Kron helping them, another great band, you know, who should have got a bit more respect or a bit more attention than they deserved, I think, Morbus Kron. Anyway, I digress. Like many, many death metal fans, I just couldn't give a fuck about Wolverine Blues. I didn't get my metal from Beavis and Butthead. I hated that. You know, just no, not having it. Now you go back to it and I go, yep, still got the Entombed tone. And one of the things that's really striking about some of those old Entombed records now is LG could fucking sing. Like he could sing. And you can, when I fell in love with High on Fire, their first 2 or 3 albums, especially when they picked up the pace a bit with Surrounded by Thieves, I was like, wow, I can hear Entombed. You know, this incredible guitar tone and this raucous rock and kind of death and roll stuff, or punk and roll, or punk and death, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And I sort of, you know, grudgingly then admitted to, like 20 years after arguing to the death about Wolverine Blues with a friend of mine, who has an Entombed covers band, I think. Shout out to Dave. Yeah, it's not bad. Now, to get me to the end of that record, that's a tall ask, but certainly when it comes on now and I hear iMaster, I go, yeah, like I said, I'm sure I'm part of those many death metalers who were just like, no, not having where all this is going. And at the time, a lot of those earache bands were trying to signing to major labels. I think in the States, was it Capitol or Columbia or something, and it seemed to us that was maybe influencing their sound, maybe where Carcass were going. But like I had this conversation with Jeff Walker, I think, once or twice, and also the guys from Paradise Lost, and they were like, look, we're a bit older and we were into death metal when Seven Churches came out. and Abominations of Desolation and the Death Strike and Repulsion and all that stuff. And by the time 89, 90 rolled out, which was your prime of death metal, we were already sort of like, yeah, okay, a bit tired of this. So maybe that's what plays into sort of Entombed, not wanting to be stuck in that death metal 1990, 91 thing, because they'd already been doing it for 5-6 years by then and wanted to change. And of course, people like me who are a bit younger were just like, no, not having any changes under any circumstances. So Wolverine Blues, I never paid attention to at the time. Now, as I said, when iMaster comes on in that opening track, I'm like, yeah, okay, not so bad. Then there's a bit of a gap, and then I think we've got a shuffle in lineup, and you get Jürgen from Grave comes in. And that is an album I really do genuinely like, To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth. And my old roommate, Paul from Arcane Sun, Fifth Dominion, or rather housemate, he used to play this album all the time, which if you know him and knew him, it's weird because it was like a rock and roll. It's a rock and roll record, death and roll record. And what actually got me into it was I noticed there was a bonus disc with the record, and it had Bustin' Out by Venom on it. And I was like, Bustin' Out by Venom. And I put it on, and it's a fucking brilliant version. It's a ripping version of it. And then I was like, okay, there's Black Breath by Repulsion, and I think God of Thunder by God of Thunder. I think it's that, is it? Out of Hand, starring Entombed. LG, Lars, Alex, Uffy, Nicky. No, this is a bit before. Well, maybe I'm mixing a few things up. Out of Hand. Yeah, Out of Hand was an indication of where the band were going after Clandestine, or not much vinyl porn in this one. And where was I? God, early onset Alzheimer's is a hard thing to beat when you don't remember what happened 2 minutes ago, but you can remember the length of demos from 1990. Or you can remember that Abnormally Deceased was the song from, or Carnal Leftovers was the song from Left Hand Path with the vocal harmonizer. Yeah, that's what happens to your brain. Anyway, what the fuck am I talking about? Yeah, To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth. There was another song that got a lot of airplay on MTV at the time, and I think that was quite a sort of big record at the time. And take 4. By the power of LG, I will bloody get through this, despite my desktop, which is doing its best to scupper my attempts at this particular Call from the Grave. All right, where the fuck did I leave it? To Ride, Shoot, and Speak the Truth. By the way, Unreal Estate is apparently got something to do with ballet or something. Look, no. Ballet and death metal, just stop. Don't get ideas above your station. Or maybe do, and I won't listen. Same difference. I guess Ofe gets... does he get unfairly blamed for this record? Nicky Anderson leaves. And in the interest of fairness, I tried to listen to Same Difference today for the first time since it came out, when I heard it sort of incidentally. And the first song, you can tell they've put that first to try and not be too jarring for Entombed fans. And there's still some Entombed parts in it. Again, LG's voice, you're like, fucking hell, okay, he's singing. It's not a brutal death metal growl. And some of his singing is cool. And, one of the things we underestimate with LG was the pacing of the vocals. There's lots of great moving parts to some of the lines, and there's some very cool rock and roll lines of vocals. The kinds of lines of lyrics of syncopation. But Same Difference has a dog on the cover, and again another logo. Just fuck off. And I hear Sonic Youth, and I hear all this stuff that I just couldn't care less about, kind of indie stuff, and that's just the way it is. If you're called Entombed and you morph into something like Tiamat did, which is still a bit dark, and it's moving into that Depeche Mode, This Is a Mercy thing, you can sort of take it. But for Entombed to do Bitter Loss and Truth Beyond, and then be sort of trying to do Jesus Lizard, Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth, I just couldn't give a shit. It's still got a big tone. It's still got some cool riffs. And oddly enough, the first song it almost sounds a bit post-punky, the first song. And you're thinking, wow, if this came out now, it would be respected more. And then song 2 starts and you're going, okay, there's no need for this bar riff, which is deliberately trying to be as un-death metal as possible. So Perhaps for some people there's a pretty good record in there, but certainly 1998. I think I was mainly listening to 1998 80s demo heavy metal and obscure 80s heavy metal and 70s obscure heavy metal and like super grim, black metal and stuff. And then the next three albums, right? Uprising, Morning Star, and Inferno. I'm going to put them on the screen there. I almost completely ignored them. And again, I got to thank two people. Addy from Solstafir, who, when I sang on his Bastardur record, and when we were on tour together, he played Uprising a lot. And that's the one which has the demo cover of the kind of face on it. I'll bring it up on the screen. I don't actually own it, which now seems a shame, because this is a great record. This is a total return to form. Peter Starnevind plays the drums. On this one, I think you've got Alex Hellett as well. Did Uffe leave? I don't know. Maybe, but it's great. It's the tone is huge. Say It in Slugs is big stuff, and they've moved into different kind of lyrics away from death metal, but still got a kind of rock and roll outlaw kind of spirit. And Paul, again, my from Arcane Sun, 50 Million, used to play Uprising a lot, and again at the time I just didn't care. But listening back, it's a great record, and probably should have been after Clandestine in a way, if you think about it. It's a bridge between death metal and death and roll, and the tone is huge. And again, the vocals, under 8LG, he's got vocal chops, and again I hear where High on Fire and stuff are, and lots of those kind of bands who became very big in the sort of mid to late 2000s, early 2010s, Red Fang and stuff. Some of those relapse bands, you could hear where they must have taken a listen to this record. Killer drum sound again, Peter Starnevind, that's unanimated, merciless Peter. And Morning Star again. Morning Star has what's the iconic Chief Rebel Angel? Is it opening track? Great. Those two records, I think, in retrospect, they're a year apart. This is like a purple patch. Uprising and Morning Star. Now they're not Left Hand Path and Clandestine. I get it, but I've been in a room full of grumpy middle-aged death and black metal dudes who thought exactly the same as I did, and I've sneaked a song from Uprising onto the playlist, just like Addy from Solstafir did to me in 2007 or 8. And people have gone, fucking hell, that's all right. It's got some venom in it. It's got some, I hear, and they've gone, hey, it's Entombed of Uprising, and people are like, fucking hell. Yeah, there you go. Uprising and Morning Star, totally recommended. And if you're one of those grumpy old death metal dudes who never gave them the time of day, go back and check them out. And I mean, if you're using a streaming service, it's not going to cost you a vinyl. You're not going to end up playing. But yeah, again, records. I think I own Morning Star. I'm pretty sure about it. But I mean, who needs to see? Here's a CD of Morning Star. Inferno is a little bit different. The cover sucks. I don't know what's going on there. And this one, the opening track is great. And there's a song called Children of the Underworld as well, which is cool. Is it Scottish Hell? Is maybe off Uprising. The three albums kind of merge into a bit into one. But Morning Star is it's quite doomy, and whatever's going on with that record, LG is singing a bit higher. And it's Inferno. That's the one. A bit higher. Yeah, it's those three records really solid. And live again, they're killer, at the time. And here is where it all kind of fall apart. I think you've got you've got Uffe leaves, I think, after this. You just got Alex left, Peter. I'm not sure who's playing the bass. And then you've got nothing happens for a couple of years. And then 2007, Serpent Saints, the 10 Amendments. Amendments, I don't think is as dramatic a word as maybe was thought at the time. It's, the old logo's back. I'm always suspicious of a band who puts the old logo back when they want you to go, to try and reconnect with that first sound. It's not a bad death metal record. But it sort of gets a bit lost in the weeds. A bit like some of those later Dismember records. Not bad. In fact, I prefer Inferno and Morning Star and Uprising most definitely. But it's okay, thereabouts. And then it all sort of falls apart. You get, what am I looking at here? Yeah, you get sort of nothing for a while. The band sort of, I think you get Entombed AD shortly after that, and there's a whole different change of members. And really, that's the last album of Entombed. You've got this live version of Clandestine, which I must admit I've never listened to. I get why it's on there on Spotify. And there's still, what do they have, like 180,000 monthly listeners, and time has been better to those albums than I thought, with the exception of Same Difference. Although, to be in fairness to Same Difference, it still sounds big. It's not a sonic clangor, so to speak. It's just a kind of miscalculation on some level. But hey, maybe if you didn't make that, you don't make Uprising. I don't know. Far be it from me to completely judge. I just know as a death metal fan, it wasn't for me. And also, I don't like this sort of insistence on this sort of like odd cover artwork trying to prove a point, because it looks ridiculous. But it's a point. But it's not as terrible going back, and especially those 3 albums afterwards. Maybe they had to make that to make them. Maybe Creator had to make Endorama to make Violent Revolution, and we go on, love those discussions, which is hard when you're a death metal fanatic and you think you own your bands. But they're talking about making a new album. I mean, would you really want to? All of them? I mean, Alex, I don't know what Alex does. I don't know what, I think Uffe played their Reformation gig. I don't know what the rest of them did. The guy from Morbus Quran is a killer vocalist and a great stage presence. I don't see why he couldn't sing on it. So who knows? Or maybe just don't reform and just, every now and again, just appear from nowhere and play a Left Hand Path show or a Clandestine show like Emperor do with their old albums. And maybe that's enough. And, some people who never saw those shows or heard those songs or whatever, And that's really it. That's my call from the grave. Entombed. I think Swedish Rock Magazine voted Entombed the greatest Swedish metal band of all time, with Candlemass in second. I prefer Candlemass, but I see the point. But having said I prefer Left Hand Path probably to, that's a hard discussion. Is Left Hand Path better than Nightfall? God damn it. Yeah, I can see what Sweden Rock meant. That's a hard stone to, or sword to cleave from the stone, isn't it? To decide which is better, Left Hand Path or Epicus, or Clandestine or Epicus, or anyway. Yeah, that is a metal nerds four drinks in pub conversation. That's the epitome of a metal nerds at 3 a.m. I don't know. I think Clandestine is better than Nightfall. And I hope to have that with some of you who might be listening to my ramblings. And so, to the end of this discussion about the biography or the career of Entombed. There you go. And nice to go back into the back catalogue of some of the things I missed or didn't pay that much attention to. And it gave me some great memories of hanging out with LG and stuff. And that was, there you go. Right then, my friends. Entombed. What man created, man can destroy. Bring to light that day of joy. Could be coming pretty soon, actually, couldn't it? Anyway, over and out.